My name is Frank Haggar. I'm the Director of Product Development for SlimCD. A little bit about my background. In the late 80s, I wrote a program called FormTool. It was PC World Magazine's Reader's Choice 3 consecutive years, and it was just selected as the longest continually selling software product of all time. So I'm familiar with products and how to write them.
Yeah, baby. Do I know how to pick my guests or what? Huh?
Recently, I was also a Microsoft MVP for 8 years in the Windows software development category, so I do understand coding. This particular presentation is actually going to step back a little bit. It's going to show you some code, but it's going to explain why we chose the tools we chose and how we needed to be successful. So I'm currently Director of Product Development for SlimCD, which is a payments company. SlimCD has an entire suite of products. These include point-of-sale systems, virtual terminals, mobile apps, et cetera, et cetera. So what you see here is one of the first Windows Phone card swipe apps, and we've also got a Windows 8 card swipe app. We're the only company that has both at this time. We've got an entire suite of products that range from all different technologies, and one of our big challenges became, how do we move from here? We were stuck. So we had apps that accept payments. We had web services that gave us the transactional data that we could consume. And we had these in mobile devices for iOS and Android. And we made our Windows Phone look like the others. We're not supposed to do that, but that was the easiest way for us at the time. Along came the modern interface in Windows 8, and we realized we could not do that anymore. That just taking our old apps and porting them wasn't going to work. So the best way to show how we were stuck is how do we go from the old Windows, I called it to make the programmers a little motivated. To motivate them, I called it the Windows 95 interface. Right. I want to get off of Windows 95 and I will get on to Windows 8. Yeah. So to get them motivated and enthused about this, this is where the direction is going. How do I go from here to here? And we are not designers, we're developers. We've got great web services, we've got payment functionality, we can store your data securely, but boxes and tiles, what do I do? So we were stuck. So what we decided to do was to take our web services and wrap them into a PCL so that they could be used by both Windows Phone and Windows 8.
And what's a PCL, Frank?
A PCL is a library, used to be known as a DLL in my old terms. It's a simple library that we can use from a variety of places across Microsoft platforms, and it made it very easy to get to the services. I didn't have to know XML or JSON or any of that. I use a PCL, put it in like I did a DLL, and make some library calls.
Portable class library.
Portable class library, perfect. So that's all great, but how do I present? Instead of a phone, which we'd already done, I've got more real estate. I need to present more real data, and I need to replace a Windows legacy application that's been used with lots of features, and it needs to be just as successful. So how do I get that done? And in a time-critical path. For me to be first, I need to be now. And that means I need to be effective. So we turned to C1 and we used their FlexGrid control to replace the screens where we displayed information. We used our PCLs mashed up with their grid control, and when I show you the code to do it, you'll be astonished. We also used their tiles because it gave us the Windows modern look and feel with tiles and squares that update, and it let us do it without having to become graphics designers. Instead, we could focus on keeping data secure and giving great APIs. So here's an example of our Windows 8 report screen, and we actually see 3 component 1 controls.
How many?
3 on this one single page. At the top, you'll see the tile controls where we have the totals. Underneath that, you're going to see the date control. We didn't have a good choice for a date picker, and we didn't want people to type in dates, so we used the component 1 control there. And then the FlexGrid was a dream. When you see the things it can do, it makes this app more powerful than the app we've been using for years, and we did less work. Go figure.
Has anyone ever tried to write a grid here? Very time consuming. I was talking to Michael Stark, who helped you out with all this stuff here, and he was telling me he put like at least 80 hours in it at one time, and he got like 1/10 of the functionality, of the control.
So Michael Stark actually helped us with this app. When we wrote our library, we wanted to reach out to people in the community that were outside developers because we wanted to know if our library was understandable. And Michael was one of the ones that suggested this is a great opportunity to use the C1 control, it would save us time and resources to get it done that way. So he chose that control. He also helped me with his presentation. Got a little kudos to him in here along the way as well. So here is the date selector. You can see here's the XAML code. I'm actually not showing in Visual Studio since it's a payment application. For security reasons, I'm showing you code snippets in Photoshop, I'm sorry, in PowerPoint instead of in the actual Visual Studio. So instead, this is the XAML that's in our app that binds to the date picker, and we simply populate our search request objects start date, the search request objects in our PCL library. So it's that simple to get the date out of their control, one line of code. Nice. I don't have to worry about anything else. Put in one line of code, and I know the date's right. I don't have to validate whether they have February 31st. Nothing. I don't have to worry about what they type. It's all correctly done for me.
You do one line of code is a good thing in my book, right?
One line of code that makes sure it works.
That's it.
That's the most important part.
Yeah.
So here's the FlexGrid itself, and we used a very simple FlexGrid here. There's lots of options, very powerful FlexGrid, but here we are saying select in a row mode and create the background with a thin transparency with a null, and we're going to populate that in, and it's read-only so they can't edit the grid itself like a spreadsheet. Instead, we're just displaying our report results. This is the code that populates it, and here's the magic. We have a PCL. You create an object called a transaction request, the search transaction request. That's the very first line of code. You create an object. You populate your authentication, your username, your password, which client you're searching for, and the dates right out of that Flex control. So now that I've got all that data, all I have to do is ask for a reply from my PCL library by doing a slimcd.reports.searchTransactions and pass it in the input object that we created above. Now that I get the output, all I have to do is assign that output to the FlexGrid control. That's it. So that entire grid is populated from the one line C1 Flex search results equals the item source, dot item source is equal to my transaction objects transaction list. It's simply a list of objects. That list of objects is populated right into the control, and all the data binding is done. That's simple. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Now, on top of that, we needed those tiles at the top calculated. So here we already had a list of the transactions, and we wrote a routine called get sales figures. We're going to take a look at that. Get sales figures initializes each one of those tiles counts to 0. It loops through all of the transactions, totaling up what type of transaction it is. Is it a sale? Is it a void? Is it a refund? Is it credit? And totals up the count and the amount for each one of those, and then it simply adds it to each one of the 5 tiles, and that is all it took to populate those live tiles across the top.
That's a real nice simple representation of that data with the tiles.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Now, what we've just seen is some very simple code that consumes a complex web service for payment processing, uses a grid control to present it so I don't have to do the work, and it uses some tiles that I didn't have to design or maintain or update, and boom, I'm done. I have the fantastic Windows 8 modern interface designed and completed in that simple amount of work.
Wow, and how long did it take you more or less to complete
Michael
that?
Stark worked on this particular project, and of everything he did, this was the easiest part. He had this done in a day or 2.
Wow.
I mean, it took longer to explain the rules of credit card processing than for him to pull the reports. One of the things we all know as developers, we figure out these great algorithms of how to do wonderful things, and we have all this functionality. At the end, some manager comes along and says, give me a report. And we're like, but I did all that great stuff. Now you want what? I don't want to do that. And this FlexGrid took all of that work away from us, and it really saved the day. So we skipped the header. I want to thank Michael for all the work he did in this app, and I'm actually going to show you the app now.
Oh, baby.
Again, this is the Slim CD credit card app. Now, to give you an idea of where we came from, this is our actual website, and every day we have a picture of the day, just like Bing does. And so in our Metro app, we do the same thing. We put the picture of the day in, and internet, as long as the internet works, we're going to log in. So here's my app. I am going to bring up my options bar. I'm going to click on search, and the grid and the tiles have been populated. So just
quick.
that quick, it went out, grabbed all of that data, pulled it down from my web server over this internet that's shared with 900 other people in this event, and it populated that grid. So I'm going to use the C1 Flex control, and I'm going to start from yesterday to today. See if I can scroll over to my search. We're getting cut off because of the screen. I can't quite get to the rest of my screen. Yeah, Windows 8 doesn't normally run in this small of an environment.
Right.
So I have a search button over here that if I could have clicked it, it would have refreshed all the data and all those tiles to represent the new numbers just by picking a new date. I can search for individual other information, all that. We're taking the data out of that top, out of the FlexGrid, out of the date grids and out of these other fields, putting it into my PCL that does the search, and then populating the grid control. And the grid control, one of the other great things is I can click an item in the grid control, and I can now, choosing that item, I can print a new receipt. It'll go out and get the receipt, display it on the screen, and I can also take that transaction and populate everything back over so I can charge that card again simply by pushing submit. So the app that you're looking at here is the first app to process a card swipe transaction under Windows 8, and we're also the first company that has the PCL for Windows 8 and Windows Phone. And the reason why we can say those things is because Component 1 got us past all the headaches of doing the reports and got us to market on time and functionally. We got approved right through the store using these controls.
That's cool. How about
That's
that?
amazing.
Give it up, Frank. Remember,
We had a contest in the Florida developers community to make an app based on what one developer created called a goat scream app, where it made the sounds that goats make that sound like humans. They were screams that goats make.
and man, did they get a lot of
It got a lot of attention and a lot of fun, but along the way, I went out and created an app just for Russ called RussCam. And when you click on it,
That's hilarious.
if you
RussCam screen.
RussCam
Love
screen,
it.
if you hold it close, here's Russ screaming. Well, Russ said to me, that's very cute. It's only got one screen. What can you do about that? Well, I made a Component 1 control, and this uses the Component 1 label selector control, where I can put a bunch of tiles here of all of them, and these are all the stars of the Florida development community. Here's John Papa.
RussCam! Where's Karen? There's Karen, right in the beginning
No, don't even.
there. Yeah.
I think I started with
There,
you.
yeah.
And in the middle, I've got Joe Healy in here and all the stars, so please feel free to download this. There's a few different screens in there depending on what picture. And that's the kind of applause we want to hear for RussCam. Thank you.
What a show! Stay tuned for lots more down the road.